Hi, welcome to Voices from ACTCon, where we spotlight people working in conservation tech. And today we have
Dr. Drew Cronin from the North Carolina Zoo and Chief Engagement Officer, Strategic Engagement Officer for the SMART Partnership.
So Drew, what do you do?
It depends on the day. I oversee the Conservation Education and Science Department at the North Carolina Zoo. So we have both regional and international conservation. We have an education team that does all of our in-house education, and we also have a science team that does internal and external research. And then with the SMART Partnership, I've had a lot of different roles over the years, but most of it is focused on ensuring that we're representing the practitioner community in the way that we make decisions about software development and what we deliver to the SMART community.
So in the last decade and a half of SMART being in existence, you've been with SMART?
I've been a part of SMART since 2016, so just about 10 years. But coincidentally, a photo of me from grad school was in the very first SMART brochure, even though I was not using SMART.
Cool. And how has conservation tech changed in the last 10 years? Maybe three big changes that have occurred for you.
Three big changes. I mean, I think the biggest one is just the availability and the quality of devices that have become available. I know when I first started doing this type of work, I was using, I wanted to use CyberTracker, which is a precursor to Smart Mobile. And I wrote a grant and I got $15,000, and that allowed me to get 6 devices. 6 Trimble devices that were about this big, very heavy, and they were great devices, but I mean, that's not sustainable long term. Nowadays, you can get handheld devices for $250, $300 US. They're ruggedized, they're very good. And yeah, you could question, the $2,000 device was higher quality. Some of them still probably would work today. But in terms of democratizing access to conservation technology and making it equitable and more accessible, it's certainly improved. So that is probably by far the biggest change I've seen. The other I would just say is the access to internet, high quality internet connectivity. The first time that I did field work, I think I sent 1 or 2 emails over the first 4 months, and now I can have a FaceTime call with my daughter back at home. And so I think that touches on not only the work that we're doing, but on just sort of general morale of people working in the field, just being able to stay connected and not just being so totally isolated out in the field doing whatever work you're doing.
I know that you travel a lot with your work, and you do a lot of SMART deployments when you go. Do you have an example from the top of your head of one of the most interesting ways you found people using SMART, or an interesting case study of the use of SMART?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the 2 most interesting or sort of unique ones that I've worked on are developing the human wildlife conflict investigation module for the Ministry of Environment, Forestry, and Tourism in Namibia. That was just an interesting experiment, just working with them to take a pen and paper approach to doing things and translating that into a digital system. And a lot of the several things that they needed weren't part of SMART, and so we had to kind of figure out a workaround initially or ask for those things to be built into SMART. And so that's been really interesting. There are still a lot of challenges with that too, but I think those challenges are indicative of sort of broader needs across the partnership. So for me, that's something that hasn't been a huge focus of what we work on, but it is something that drives certainly has driven a lot of innovation coming out of like my area of influence, and continues to kind of make me think about how I can work and improve the software for day-to-day operations. The other one I would say is probably the work that we're doing in the Canadian Arctic with the Nunavut Wildlife Management Board. It's just so different from everything. I'm a primatologist working in Central Africa by trade. I've run community ranger teams, and so from my earliest days, I've been working on rangers going out into the field doing anti-poaching, some sort of protection. And the work in Canada is totally different. It's all community members. It's indigenous communities. They have rights to harvest wildlife, to use wildlife. And it's having them voluntarily collect data on what they're harvesting, what they're seeing, having that feedback into a central system that then can inform quotas and their access, which is set by the federal government in Canada. So it's just different. I mean, it's cold, it's snow, there's not a tree in sight. So just like the context is different, the use case is different. And it's, again, a lot of interesting challenges to try to figure out, how do you get people that I'm not going to train, I'm not going to see, how are you going to get them access to the phone? How are we going to make it work on their phones? We can't configure their phones to be optimal for SMART. That has to be working on their personal side. So just a lot of interesting challenges. So those are the two I would say are the probably most interesting to me.
Okay. I know that from observation anyway, that you care a lot about education, capacitation, and in your deployments you do a lot of that. And I think technology is just advancing at a really fast pace.
Yeah.
And I suppose with everything there is a responsibility and a caution to it. So what would you say to the younger people that are getting into conservation tech, working in it? What would be maybe a word of caution, or kind of like, be careful of this, if there's anything like that?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest, I like to sort of maybe make a joke that's only funny to myself, but I like to joke that I'm a bit of a Luddite, even though I work in conservation technology. I think the most important thing for people to remember is that conservation technology is a tool to help people. Like it is just a tool, and it's only as good as the people and the context in which you're working. And so you can have a great site with a great tool, but if they're not trained how to use it, it's not going to work. Or you could have a terrible site and trained really well, and it could work really well, within its context. And so for me, I just often come back to what is the sort of minimum viable need that we need to hit for that team? Like what do they need to do? And I come into each site, and often my work is centered around SMART.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wouldn't come to the site. I wouldn't get to the site unless there was a need and there was an interest in moving forward. But I come to them saying, like, how do we make this as simple as possible? And I think that, to me, is the biggest challenge, both for young people and for old people, because you can see like cool, buzzy new technology, and we could do that and we can do that. And it's like, well, is that really what's needed? Is that going to make the most impact? And so I think focusing on what's simple, what is functional, that's as close to bulletproof as possible. That's I would recommend. The caution is just keep it simple.
Cool. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, and keep it simple.